Hello, everyone. Let me get this mic. We go live on Sunday, so I feel a little bit like weird. So, what I want to talk about? My sweater is brown. Okay. Just this is an Ask Me Anything live, so it's kind of open for everyone. I do want to say, I want to share this with you that mortgage rates have hit the highest level since November after a hot inflation report. So the last CPI report for March was that inflation was at 3.5%. And it was higher than what was anticipated. So it's going up and not down. Hey, the Huntress, how are you? Thank you for joining me. So, and go ahead and put in the chat where you guys are coming from. Tabitha is in North Carolina. Hey, North Carolina. All right, so this is an Ask Me Anything, but I do want to just start with, because I know I'm sure I did a video in January about where mortgage rates were heading. One expert said it might even get into the fours because they anticipated at least 4 to 5 rate cuts in 2024. Now they're backing up with those rate cuts to maybe 2 in 2024 and probably like fall or winter of 2024. So there's no anticipation getting into the summer that there are going to be rate cuts spring and summer. So nobody's saying they're going to cut rates, their next meeting, their June meeting, they're not saying that they're going to cut rates. So we just have to be really mindful that mortgage rates are likely to stay in the high 6s, low 7s. On Friday, mortgage rates were 7.44%. That's for conventional. FHA was 6.92% and VA was 6.94%. So, the anticipation basically to keep it easy or to make it easy, when inflation goes down, interest rates will likely follow because then the Fed will start cutting rates. They don't want to cut rates too early and then prices go back up again. So that's where you are if you're in the market right now. When inflation does better and goes down, and remember the goal is still 2%, then they're more likely to cut rates and mortgage rates are going to come down. Now, people have to buy houses regardless of rates. So a lot of them are adjusting their budgets and not buying as expensive of a home. They're cutting that in that way so they can still keep some level of affordability. So that's what people are adjusting, and they're still buying in spring. And that's why, the demand is still there. The demand didn't go away. In a lot of places, supply is still low. So that's where we are in the market as far as interest rates. And now I'm going to take all of your questions. So put your questions in the chat. I don't have my moderator. She's off on Sunday. So it's just me. So be nice in the comments, and I will try to take them in the order they're received. Kevin, the People's Lender. I know you guys have seen me do some lives with Kevin. Where do you see the market going this sales season? I think it's still going to be pretty competitive. I listed a house where I live. I got 2 offers. I probably had 10 to 16 showings. So again, the demand was there. And, we got 2 offers. We got an offer above list price. We put an offer. I had a client that was moving here. We looked at about 30 homes, I feel like, or at least we attempted to look at 30 homes. We put in, I think, 3 offers. We offered above list price. So it's still going to be competitive, especially in that affordability range where people want to get something not super expensive. If there's a move-in ready home and it's considered to be affordable, a lot of people are going to have desire for that property. So it's still pretty competitive getting into the spring. So just be mindful of that, please. But Kevin, thank you for joining me. You guys need to check out Kevin's channel if you haven't already. He has some good information there. Hey, Yapa, very cool. Glad to be here in McDonough. I'm in Georgia, for those of you that don't know. So McDonough is a city in Metro Atlanta. We have Birmingham. We have Marquise. We have Blair from South Florida. Iris from Delaware. Let me see if I have anybody on the West Coast, or close Midwest, Texas. Oh, but going to Macon on the 29th. All right. Congratulations coming to Macon. That is great. All right, let's get these questions. All right, I think Shauna has my first one. I'm going to be completely debt-free in August 2024. That's my birthday, Virgos. All right. Should I start the home buying process today or wait until August? All right. So we're in April, say May, June, July, August. You have 4 months. Absolutely. You should be starting today. You should be starting today if you plan to be buying in August. If you're planning on buying later in the year, you probably can wait. But I think 3 to 4 months definitely gives you enough time to get your pre-approvals, to know where you're going to live. It may take you 3 to 4 months to find a property. So, you want to make sure you're giving yourself ample time. So I think if you plan on buying as soon as you're debt free, then go ahead and buy in August. You would start now. That's the answer to your question. And I have a few videos about, the process, all of that, but it should take you about 3 to 4 months even to find a house. And make sure you're getting 3 pre-approvals, 3 quotes. All right, good question. And get my masterclass if you haven't already. All right, thank you. Tabitha, what if rates drop after you purchase a home? Can you refinance? Okay, the answer to this is maybe. The answer to this is maybe. I have a video about this very, very subject. It says, when does it make sense for you to refinance? So you want to watch that video. But the premise of that video is, so say you buy a house at 7.5% in August. Okay, since August is on our minds. August, you buy a house 7.5%. In January of 2025, interest rates go to 7%. Does it make sense to refinance to save 0.5%? Probably not. It's probably going to have to drop at least 1% for you to break even on the cost of your refinances. Refinances are not free. There are closing costs that are going to be rolled into your loan when you refinance. So you have to have a break-even point. And I'm just putting out numbers. The refinance costs you $10,000. You're going to save $75 a month on your mortgage. How many months until you make up that $10,000? That's why it doesn't make sense to refinance unless typically rates are going to drop at least a point or more, right? Okay. And the other piece of it is you bought a house in August and you want to refinance it. You have to make sure that that house is going to be able to be refinanced. If sometimes, and watch that full video, if your house is not worth possibly what you paid for it, since you may not have that much equity, or maybe you paid a little bit over, then the lender that you want to refinance with may not you may not be eligible for a refinance. So watch that video. It goes into great detail about when it makes sense to refinance. So when lenders are telling you, oh, just get the 7% and refinance, it is true that in the future you will be able to possibly refinance, but interest rates are going to have to go down, at least a point or more. And it's going to take you a while to break even on that. So just know that before you buy, how refinancing works. And you don't want to, because the key thing, Tabitha, is you don't want to buy a property and thinking, okay, I'm going to stretch and, pay more than I'm comfortable with the hopes of refinancing in 6 months or a year. If that doesn't happen, you're going to have a house that you can't really afford. So make sure even if you cannot refinance until 3, 4, 5 years from now, that house at time of purchase is comfortable for you. Don't count on the refinance for affordability. Thank you, Tabitha. All right, we have 115 people on the live. Thank you for joining me. Go ahead and hit the like button, please. And if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. All right, going back to the comments. All right, let's get it. All right, I answered that. All right, med staff, hello. When it comes to taxes, which one do you submit with your application? Your W-2 or your tax returns? Transcripts from the IRS site. This is a very good question. So typically you're just giving them your W-2 forms. You're not required to submit your tax returns for most applications unless there is an income component. So for example, USDA loans, There's an income limit that you can have. They may ask for your tax returns. If you're getting any kind of down payment assistance, they will likely ask you for your tax returns because they're trying to see what your income is. But if you're not doing any of that, you probably don't have to submit your tax returns with your mortgage application. So W-2s are what they're going to ask for. However, I would be prepared for them to possibly ask for them. So that's one of the things that you need to have ready and have, access to. And if Kevin's still in the chat, he may be able to answer this a little bit better. But I would say have access to them, because when you go to underwriting, they may ask for them for various reasons. So you want to have them available. But just for your initial application, just your W-2 forms is enough. If you cannot find your tax returns, they will request transcripts from the IRS. And you want to make sure you're giving yourself enough time, because if the IRS is backed up and you can't get them quickly, it can delay your closing. But good question. Hey, Curtis Jackson, I'm waiting for you to buy a house. I feel like it's been about 2 or 3 years. We're gonna have a party when you close, I promise. Portia Talk Power, do you know of any good rent-to-own sites? I'm not a big proponent of rent-to-own, but I did a video about does it make sense for a rent-to-own. So watch that video. So I'm not going to, I talk about specific ones in that video. Just search for rent on, my video page. So I did a video whether it makes sense to do rent-to-own. So watch that video, but I don't have anybody that I recommend. All right. Thank you for that question, Portia. All righty. Oh, Curtis, my birthday is August 31st too. See, that's why we have to have a party when you close. My birthday is August 31st. So that's so cool. All right. Curtis. Curtis has been like commenting on my videos for a few years now. So it's so funny that his birthday, we have the same birthday. All right. Let me calm down. All right, CJ, if I want to use Georgia Dreams program, I'm not able to use it with any bank or lender, or do I have to use their suggested lender? Okay, so for everyone, Georgia Dream is a specific program, a down payment assistance program in Georgia. If you're one, every state has down payment assistance programs. I've done a live about this. I have a down payment assistance playlist, so you can find out more about your program. But for CJ specifically, in order to get the Georgia Dream program, you have to go through a Georgia Dream approved lender. And if they're not a Georgia Dream, they might have to like fill out some paperwork, that sort of thing, to be an approved lender through Georgia Dream. But if they're not, they cannot offer you the Georgia Dream program. On the Georgia Dream website, they have a list of all of their approved lenders. Good question. And that might be the case in your state as well. I kind of explained this in that live that I did. If you go to my live tab, I did a live all about down payment assistance. Sometimes you can't just go to any lender. If you're wanting to use one specific program, you can't always just go to any lender and think you can use that program. Some programs are only connected with specific lenders. Good question, CJ. All right, let's see what it says. The Huntress. After this first home, I want to build a portfolio. What cities are looking good for that in Georgia right now? I don't know specifically, but I would say this, in talking to investors, it's always the city that's connected. So say there's, you want to look for things that are growing and that have growth. And so if you already see a city that's, probably that's already had that transition where a lot of people have moved there, or maybe they're gentrifying those neighborhoods and those are too expensive right now, go to that neighboring city, because pretty soon, once that is full or it's overpriced, people are going to stretch to that next city. So that's kind of a rule of thumb for the most part. I think somebody said they were moving to Macon. Macon's very affordable, and go where they are building. So if they're building or having like new jobs, new factories, that sort of thing, coming to specific areas, then that's usually, you need to follow like zoning and approvals and what is being built even before they announce it. You want to get ahead of it as much as possible, because once they announce it, everybody and their mom that knew about it probably already bought up a lot of the property. So just follow those cities that you're interested in that might be outside of the metro area and see what's coming there, what development is coming there. I know we have a possible, hockey stadium coming in North Georgia. So that's something you want to look at and maybe potentially start buying in those areas. Good question. All right, Deborah from the DMV. Good. All right. Let's see. Make every effort. I'm seriously considering a 5-5 arm. My apartment lease is over this November, and I just don't want a huge mortgage each month. I feel like the 5-5 gives me more time. All right, so a 5-5 arm, I thought it's 5-1 arm, but an arm basically is, and after 5 years, your interest rate is going to change. I did an arm in my first house. I did a 7-year arm, and I was able to sell. I think I sold the house in the first 3 years, so it never adjusted on me. So all I would say for you is, if the only way you can afford the property is using an arm, and you're not saving that much. If you look at the interest rates between arm rates and your normal fixed rates, there's not a huge savings if we're talking about the same thing. But I want to make sure that you can still afford the payment when the payment adjusts. So for example, you have to think about the risks associated with it, because I did a 7-1 arm. I sold it in 3 years. This was my first house. I was able to save some money doing the 7-1 arm. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a 7-year arm. Okay. It adjusted after 7 years. And what I was able to sell it in 3, but if I wasn't able to sell it and say I stretched out to the 7-year arm, it would have been around the time during the housing crisis when home values went down. And so when it's time for me to sell that house, I probably wouldn't have been able to sell it. My mortgage payment would have been up, and that would have maybe put me in a predicament, right, where I couldn't afford my mortgage payment. So you just want to be mindful of it. I think even if you're getting into an arm situation, you want to make sure you can afford the adjustment. You don't want to just be able to afford the arm with the lower rate. You want to be able to afford it when it adjusts as well. And I do have a video and I talked about my experience in more detail about, my arm experience, what you need to think about before you do an arm. But okay, you save money now, but you need to prepare for the adjustment in the future. Those 5 years are going to go really, really fast. And we don't know where the market's going to be officially in 5 years. So please watch that video. That may help you make your decision. And definitely get 2 quotes. Get a quote that if you didn't do an arm, and get a quote if you just did a fixed rate. Good question. All righty. Barbara, hey Barbara from Antioch, Tennessee, planning to move. Okay, so I live in Douglasville, Georgia. It's in Douglas County. So you need to email me if you're planning on doing that. I just don't want to do it here, but yeah, email me. And my email is everywhere, so just email me and put Douglasville in the subject. All right, thank you. Got a lot of Georgia people on this Sunday afternoon. Yeah, Curtis, Team Virgo. That's cool. All right. Let's see. Make sure you're putting a question mark with your questions, because again, I don't have a moderator. So I know you guys are talking in the chat amongst yourselves as well. All right. Ismail Malik. I am finding it difficult to rent a good place, but maybe forced to buy. I plan to stay at my new job for 4 to 5 years max because it is a small town. Is it worth buying now with a high interest rate and rent? I would say I'm in the school, Malik, in this market. You need to have the desire to stay in your house 5 to 7 years at least, because you want to be able to get through any adjustments in home values and that sort of thing. So I'm going to say no for the buy for you, because like you said, you may only stay in your job for 4 years. Or if you do buy, then I want you to buy like a multifamily, a duplex, something with some income potential if it's possible in the small town. or something that needs like repair, like buying below market value. Maybe over the next 4 years, you fix it up, and then maybe it becomes a rental for you. You want to, you don't want to buy at the top of the market in the small town. Say prices go down a little bit and you don't have time for it to adjust, and then you have difficulty selling it. So I would say I'm a no for you for buying, because you don't have a stable, you don't plan on staying there very long. All right. Thank you. Good question. All right. Let's see. Hi, Vibe. What are the FHA current rules on student loans? How are payments calculated into your DTI? Now, Kevin, you're going to have to help me on this a little bit because I'm going to try to do it by memory. But FHA loans will use your actual payment. Back me up on this, Kevin. They will use your actual payment that's on your credit report. If you're in deferment or anything like that, right, they're going to use 0.5%. Let me say that again. They're going to use 0.5% of your mortgage balance. So if you owed $100,000 in student loans, and it used to be 1%, now it's 0.5%. So you're in deferment, you're not making payments right now, but you owe $100,000 in student loans, they're going to calculate $500 of that payment into your debt to income ratio, $500 a month, even if you're not paying that. And this is for everybody with student loans. Just because you're not currently paying your student loans does not mean that it's not going to be factored into your debt to income ratio. They're going to factor it into your debt to income ratio. But what makes it a little bit confusing is that everybody does it differently. VA does it one way, FHA does it another way, conventional Fannie and Freddie do it differently, and USDA does it differently. So all of the loan options look at your student loans a little bit differently. And if they're on deferment, they look at it one way. If you're on an income-based repayment plan, they look at it a different way. So that's why it's really important for you to get your mortgage pre-approval early, so you're not surprised by anything regarding student loans. But I do have a video where I accurately tell you for each one how your lender is going to look at it. So if you search under my videos, just put in student, and any of my student loan videos will come up. And that one says, how will student loans affect my payment? And I go over each one of them and tell you how it works. But they will look for Kevin's answer. If Kevin's still here, he may give you an answer specifically. I think FHA looks at your monthly payment, but I'm positive if you're on deferment or you're on forbearance, that they're going to use 0.5%. All right, good question. But watch that. Anybody that has student loan videos, then watch that video that I did. I'm going to tell you how VA looks at it, how USDA looks at it, and I give examples in that video. Thank you, Hi Bob. All right, hello, Vilma. Hello. What is the different of a primary to second home in a mortgage rate? All right, it's significant typically. So when you are buying your primary residence, that's when you're going to get, and a primary residence means you're going to live in that property, and that's your first property. It's not that you don't have any other property except this one, and this is the one you're going to live in. That's what a primary residence is. And when you establish that you're buying a primary residence, or you're owner occupying the property, the benefit to you is you typically are going to get a lower down payment and a lower interest rate. Okay. So when they're asking you about your work history and where do you work and all of that, they're trying to determine, are you going to be living in this house? And I'm doing a video, it should be coming out next week, all about owner occupancy, but they're looking to see, okay, are you going to occupy this property? And a lot of you that are moving from one state to another state, they justify that, or they determine if you're going to live in that property, even though you're living in another state, by your employment. Are you transferring jobs? Have you already, got a job? Sometimes they wait for you to get a paycheck from the new job in the new state before they finally approve you. So they need to prove that you're going to live in that house as the primary resident to get the benefit of a lower down payment and lower closing costs. Not lower interest rate for the most part. All right. Now, when you're trying to buy a second home, either a second home, investment property, sometimes they look at those a little bit different. So if you say I'm going to buy and invest a second home, then it might be a little bit lower. Some of those you can find for like a 10% down versus a 20% down on an investment property. So lenders look at those things a little bit different, but the reason why you have to have a higher down payment and usually a higher interest rate on second homes or investment properties is because the lender is taking more risk. Because if a person is having difficulty paying their bills, they lose their job, the first house they're going to make sure they pay is the house that they live in. They'll let those other homes go and they will pay the mortgage, so they're not homeless, right? So there's more risk when you have more properties. There's more risk on those second, third homes for them. So your down payment's going to be higher and your mortgage is going to be higher. And all of the government-backed programs, FHA, VA, USDA, those are all for primary owner-occupant mortgages where you're buying a primary resident. And now you have to live in there for 1 year. After 1 year, do what you want with the property, but the expectation is when you get one of those mortgages, FHA, VA, and USDA, that the intent is for you to live in that house for 1 year. All right, good question, Vilma. All right, let's see. MedSav, you're back. I'm a Fed in a ladder position. My current income is 20,000 more than what I made last year. How is this going to impact my approval? They're going to look at what you make now. So the only time, and I don't understand the ladder position, but the only time that they average your income is when you're self-employed. So if you're self-employed or a 1099, they'll use your last 2 years of your tax returns and they'll average what you made, because it's very rare that a self-employed person makes the same exact amount every year. So they'll average your last 2 years for self-employed. But if you're a W-2, they will use your current salary, what you're making right now, to determine what you're pre-approved for. Good question. All right, Ronald, is there any added benefit in paying off PMI? Yeah, for a lower mortgage payment. You can't. Okay, so if you're getting conventional, there is an option with lenders to pay your PMI up front. So I think if you're going to stay in that home long term, right, that might make sense. Anytime you're going to pay something up front, you better know, right, that you're going to stay in that house. Because if you sell it, if you pay up front and you stay in the house for 2 years and sell it, you've paid too much money, right? So with PMI, with a conventional loan, for everybody that doesn't know, with a conventional loan, PMI is going to be required when you don't put down at least 20%. But with most lenders, once you reach a 20% value, either through payments or the property just increasing in value, then they'll take off your PMI, right? Or there's an option at the very beginning if you want to pay your PMI up front. You're going to have to do that math. You're going to have to be really, really sure that you're going to stay in that house long term. In the house that I was talking about, my first house, that 7-year ARM, I sold after 3 years, but after like year 2, I got my PMI removed. It was all ARMs are conventional. I think so. Well, my ARM was conventional. And I was able to get rid of my PMI because the value of my house increased enough for me to have a 20% equity. So I, contacted my mortgage company after year 2, and I said, hey, I think, I have at least 20% equity. Home values have been going up where I am. They sent an appraiser out. They appraised the house. I had 20% equity, and they went ahead and, took away my PMI. So if I would have done it the other way and paid, my PMI up front, then I wouldn't have broken even. It would have made sense because I got rid of it after 2 years. So just be mindful of that. All right, good question, Ronald. Erlene, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is your credit score and which carries more weight, credit score or income? Definitely credit score. And I say credit score is more important than income because if your credit is too low, you don't even qualify, right? So if you have a 500 credit score, unless there's some subprime mortgage lenders or some lenders are going to, charge you an arm and a leg and a 15%, I don't know, like a high interest rate, it's going to be hard for you to get a mortgage at all. But at various incomes, you can qualify for a mortgage. Now, can you afford a house? That's something different, right? So I can have a 700 credit score. I could be making $25,000 a year and qualify for a mortgage. Now that mortgage might be 60,000 or 80,000, but if I'm moving to Macon, right, Macon, Georgia, then I might be able to afford something there. So 100%, the answer to this question is credit score. Because if your credit score is too low, then you can't qualify, or it's going to be super expensive for you to qualify. So definitely credit score carries more weight. Income, of course, the more money you make, the more house you can afford. Okay. But even at a low income, you can afford a mortgage. Good question. Hey, Cookie. Yes, I haven't been live since probably before spring break. So I'm just like getting back into it. But thank you. I did my hair today. I did my hair today for this live. All right. Thank you, Cookie. All right, Curtis, I'm curious how the new settlement with the NRA is the National Association of Realtors. I think the NRA is like the gun one. The NAR is the real estate one. National Association of Realtors is going to affect buyers in July and beyond. I did a video on this already, and then I did a live on this. So basically, the interest rates that or the commissions offered by sellers are not going to be advertised. So right now, when you go shopping with your agent, they know for every house they show you what percent is being offered to them as a buyer's agent. Is it going to be 2%, 3%? So it's not really a worry of how they're going to get paid if they don't have an agreement already that you're going to pay them. Now, after July, it's been proposed that they're going to not advertise what people are offering or what sellers are offering, and there's going to be more of a pull for you to pay your agent directly. And for first-time home buyers, that makes your whole purchase a lot more expensive. So I did a live video on this probably about 3 weeks ago. Please watch that video. And I have a video coming out next week about 3 tips that I want you to follow when you're dealing with your agent for starting now, because agents are in anticipation of this changing in July. Agents are already starting to change their business practices. So you need to change how you're interacting with your agent as well. So I did a video about what you need to do now. So watch that next week, please. All right. Good question, Curtis. You're going to be my favorite person now that we have the same same birthday. All right. Phil, closing on my first home Friday. Congratulations. All right. Sorry. But seller has a family emergency. Should I agree to change the closing day or request that they get a power of attorney? What are options as buyers as I have already made arrangements? All right, this is it's not too difficult of a scenario. I guess my question would be, what is the emergency that they're having? If it's something like really legitimate that they've shared with you, then if it's not going to harm you, go ahead and extend the closing date. If it is going to harm you, and what I mean by harm you is you've already paid for your moving truck, you can't extend your rate lock, things like that. If those are going to cost you money, then why don't you ask them to cover it? When you start talking about money, then they may change their mind as to how they're going to move forward. So if you add up the cost of extending the closing, so say they want to extend it 3 to 4 days and you have to cancel something, you have to pay extra rent, you have to do all of those things. You can say, hey, I can do it. I can't extend the closing, but it's going to cost you. I need a credit, right? I need a credit or something for, whatever that cost is. So the cost says $2,000. Hey, I need an additional credit toward my closing cost for $2,000 if I want to extend it. They may say, oh, let's go ahead and close, or let's go ahead and get a power of attorney because we're not paying you $2,000. So that could be the scenario. I had this situation happen. My clients, they were buyers, they were moving from out of town, and we asked the seller to extend closing so they can be in town, and they extended it a whole week. No money, exchange. There was no big deal. We just asked and they did it. But you could, if it's really going to cause you hardship, then tell them, okay, but right, you need some money to cover the cost that it's going to cost you, and you can do that in an amendment to make sure that happens. I hope that's helpful. But work with your agent to kind of, make sure it's still smooth. You really just want your transaction to be smooth, because I don't know if, during this transaction, if they've done some things for you and kind of looked out for you, you want to kind of maybe do the same thing on your side as well. All right, thank you. All right, answer that question. Uplift. When is buying a fixer upper worth it? Roof repair, bathroom repair. Buying a fixer upper is worth it if you are buying significantly below market value and you have the ability or the funds to fix it, and in the future that the property is going to be worth more. You don't buy a fixer upper at market value, because then you have to put money into it and you're like at a loss. So to me, a fixer upper is worth it if you have the ability, especially if you have the ability to do it yourself. Then you're saving even more money. If you have to hire contractors and all of that to fix things, then you have to think about that cost before you buy it. But a fixer upper is worth it if you're buying significantly below market value. And then I have 203K videos where you buy a fixer upper and you roll the repair cost into the mortgage. Watch those videos if you're interested in fixer uppers in general. But yeah, that's when I would consider a fixer upper. Okay. Thank you, Uplift, for your question. All right. I think Kevin is helping me out in the comments, asking some questions. All right, 300. My purchase agreement says seller will pay. Okay, so number one, I'm not your agent. And let me say this. I'm not your agent and I'm not an attorney. So this is not legal advice. This is just, conversation. All right. The purchase agreement says seller will pay $4,000 closing costs. Lender is now saying he adjusted that for the seller replacing the AC, but that is not in the contract. Owner agreed to make repairs. All right, why is a lender negotiating your contract? That's question number one. So that would be my first question to my agent. My agent would be, okay, why is the lender telling me what my $4,000 is going to be used for, and it's not in the contract? Because if anything that is agreed upon needs to be agreed upon in writing and needs to be in the contract. If you do not want to use the $4,000 in closing costs for the seller replacing the air conditioning, then, don't agree to it. But there has to be a reason that I'm thinking that this is happening, and you need to make sure you understand that reason. So you're going back to your agent and you're saying, hey, agent, what's happening here? I thought they were paying $4,000, because they could pay $4,000 in closing costs and fix or replace the AC. Both things can happen, right? So it seems like you need to go back to your agent, because a lender shouldn't be negotiating your contract. Okay. Thank you so much. You said, I feel like my agent and lender in cahoots turned me off. You should have my masterclass, because then you would be so super educated. It may be too late, honestly, because you're already under contract for the masterclass, but I kind of go over those things so you understand how each person is working and what they should be doing. All right. All right. So let's see. Any other questions? All right, Grandmaster D. What is a homestead exemption, and does every state have it? This is a very good question. So a homestead exemption gives you, in some states, it gives you a discount on your property taxes for your primary residence. So not on your investment properties, but it's supposed to help out for people in their primary home to have some discount on their property taxes. But I don't know if every state has it. It's very common in some states. I know multiple states do have it. I can't say that every state has it. But all you have to do is probably an easy Google search to put in homestead exemption Arizona, homestead exemption Utah, homestead exemption New Jersey, and see what states have homestead exemptions. And there are also different types of homestead exemptions. You have, for your primary residence. You have it if you are a senior. They may exempt you from some of your property taxes. They have property tax exemptions for veterans, people with disabilities. So every state has different exemptions. Even different cities have different exemptions. So you have to kind of do that research with your agent in that state. If you don't have an agent yet, then just do some Google searches to find out about those exemptions. All right, good question. All right, let's see. All right, Felicia, I own a home in North Carolina. I have a 31 $31, hopefully it's $31 shortage in escrow this year. Can I pay the difference rather than increase in payments? You should be able to. Typically, when they send out your escrow analysis, they give you the option to either increase your payments to cover the shortage, or they give you the option just to pay the shortage up front. And so I would, if they didn't send this in your analysis, I would just call or email, however the customer service works for your mortgage company, and ask them, could you just go ahead and pay that difference so it doesn't impact your mortgage payment? I do have a video on this as well. It's called Why My Mortgage Payments Went Up, because mine did go up. So I kind of tell you guys how, because I still escrow my payments. So I kind of tell you how that works. So watch that video. But the answer to your question is you should have the option just to pay the shortage, but call them and let them know that's what you want to do. Otherwise, they're just gonna, increase your payments. All right. Hey, Chef Brooklyn. Thank you. All right. Hey, Tammy. Hi, Shahida. Is it best to buy an existing home or just buy your land and have a custom home built? Tammy, that's a very good question, and it really depends. So I did a video buying a house on your own land, because especially during the pandemic, a lot of people were having trouble finding properties, and they were like, I'm just going to buy some land and build a house. There's a lot more that goes with that process. So I did a video with a lender and with an agent that does, represents a lot of custom builders, that sort of thing. So watch that video. I ask a lot of questions for first-time home buyers that may want to do this. So I would watch that video. My answer is it depends on, because you can't just say, oh, I'm going to buy, an acre of land or 2 acres of land, and then I'm going to build a house. There are soil testing. Is that land able to be built on? How do I get utilities and water to that land? By the time you add up a lot of those things, then, it may just be as expensive, if not more expensive, than building, buying an existing house. And then some areas, some states, cities have ordinances and say, okay, you can't build a house under a certain square footage. So you're maybe building a house bigger than what you could buy on the market. So just watch that video. It's called Building a House on Your Own Land. Watch that. Thank you, Tammy. All right, Maisha. Hey, Maisha. I like those glasses. Sorry. I have a $6,000 seller. Okay, I have a $6,000 seller credit. Let me read this again. I have $6,000 left after seller credit. Would it be smarter to buy down the rate or just apply it to the balance of the loan? It depends. And this is what it depends on. It depends on when you're going to break even with that $6,000. So if you buy down your rate, you're going to save on your monthly payment. Let's say that you're going to save $40. At what point do you make up that $6,000 that you could have done just toward your balance of your loan or your closing costs? Like, you could do that math to figure out which one makes the most sense. Would it make more sense to buy down the rate long term, and that would probably pay off long term? Or does it make more sense to just lower your balance of your mortgage $6,000 and then your payments are going to be lower that way? So I would just do the math both ways to see which makes most sense. But I would say this is for everybody listening. You need to make sure, okay, when you are asking for a closing cost credit, that any extra, right, gets applied to one of these things. Because what happens is, so say you ask a seller to pay $15,000 in closing costs, and your closing costs are just $10,000, and your mortgage lender doesn't make sure that all of that money is utilized, you can lose that $5,000. Because if they say it's only for closing costs and your closing costs are less than that, the seller's going to get that balance unless they're going to amend it some way that it goes towards something else. So just be mindful. So even in this situation, you may not be able to use the $6,000 to pay off the balance of your loan. Like you can't just say, because you're basically saying, I want the house for cheaper, or, it may not be possible for you to use the credit in that way. But talk to your lender and say, okay, how I have $6,000 left. Can I even use it to pay off the balance of the loan? Because it's like you're making a payment, or you're increasing your down payment, and the seller cannot contribute to your down payment. They only can contribute to your closing costs. So in looking at this example, it may not be a choice for you to apply it to the balance of your loan. Because again, the seller cannot contribute to your down payment. And by using the $6,000 before you close, that's going toward your down payment, not your closing costs. So be mindful of that. It's probably going to be that it's going to be applied to your rate. So Maisha, again, if Kevin's still in the if Kevin's still in the chat, answer that. But I think you have to use it for your rate. All right, good question. All right, yes, please like and subscribe. We're at 201 people, so hopefully I have 201 likes, please. All right, thank you, Miss Jones, for reminding everybody to like the video. All righty. All right, Sonnet, that's a pretty name. All right, I have applied for home loans with 2 different lenders for FHA. Would I have to apply, or would those lenders automatically apply for me? Okay, let me read this again, Sonnet. I have applied for home loans with 2 different lenders for FHA loans. Would I have to apply, or would these lenders apply for me? You already applied. So when you did your loan application, as long as the lender offers FHA, USDA, conventional, then they will find, or they will recommend which one is best for you. I think that's what you're asking. So both lenders have access to mortgage products. So they can give you conventional, FHA, USDA, VA. Okay, so they'll figure out, and they'll give you, when you get the pre-approval, go ahead and ask them for a loan estimate or a loan worksheet, so they can estimate the closing costs. They can estimate, your monthly payment, those types of things, right? So the answer to you is yes. They're going to, they're not going to apply for FHA, I guess. I think we're using the wrong verbiage, but they have access to lend you through these products, these mortgages, FHA, VA, USDA. Okay. You don't have to apply separately for FHA. You go through the lender. All right, Pastor Donnie, what do you think about bank statement programs for self-employed? I think they're a good option. However, you're going to pay more. So just be mindful, you're going to pay more because you're not giving them all of your information. You're not giving them your W-2s. You're not giving them your bank statements. That's it. But you're not giving them your tax returns. When you're this is what happens, Pastor Donnie, with self-employed people. They take so many tax deductions, it makes it look like they make no money. So say, for example, somebody brings in $100,000 in their business, but they write off so many things that when they file their taxes, because they want to save in taxes, which they're entitled to, they write off so many things, it looks like they made $30,000 instead of $100,000. But where that messes most self-employed people up, how that messes a lot of self-employed people up, is because now you want to buy something, and especially for a house, the lender's like, oh, you make $30,000 a year, you qualify for $80,000. And so then they turn to bank statement programs that don't require, for them to use their tax returns and that sort of thing. But again, that's more of a risk to the lender, because now the lender's like, okay, what does he really make? Does he make 100,000 or do he make 30,000? So many deductions, that sort of thing. So in order for them to take on that risk, the down payment's going to be higher, usually about 20%, and the interest rate is going to be higher. So they're a good option, but just know because you're doing it in that way, you're going to have a higher monthly cost than if you did it the more traditional way of showing them your W-2s and all of that, or not your W-2s, your tax returns to qualify. And another way you can do this, if you're not trying to buy right now, you can ask your accountant, whoever does your taxes, for them to spread out your deductions. Like you could just tell them, hey, I'm trying to buy a house in the next 2 years. I need to make sure I'm making at least this amount of money each year, so I can get the best rates. I can do, I can do FHA for 3% or 3.5% instead of putting down 20%. So they're a good option if that's the only option you have, right? All right, good question. All right, and I don't think I have a self-employed video, but Kevin does. Kevin does have a self-employed video. All right, Tashima says, I don't want to pay over $2,000 in a mortgage. I feel you, Tashima. I feel you. I mean, that's not the case for everybody right now, but I understand. All righty. Okay, let's see. I'm going through this. We're at about 4:53. Go ahead and ask me your last questions. I'm going to take 5 more questions. So if you haven't had your question answered, I think I've gone in a pretty good order. So I don't think I forgot you. If you feel like I've skipped over you, repost your question because I've been trying to go in order. All right, I do have while waiting for you guys to do that, I do have my masterclass. It's linked in all of my videos. I don't have it linked right now. I'm gonna try to pull it up before we get off so I can share the link. But my masterclass will help you just know it. Number one, it's a masterclass. I give samples, I give examples, I have videos. So you know going into the transaction, everything you need to know. Because again, like you feel like you're getting scammed by your lender. You feel like you're getting scammed by your agent because you're trusting so much on their expertise. You don't want to put all of this biggest financial decision in those hands alone. So you want to know things for yourself. So my master class pretty much gives you my brain to say, okay, you're in this section. This is what should be happening. This is what your agent should be doing. This is how they should be negotiating. This is what you should be getting from your lender. This is what they should be doing. This is what an appraisal looks like. This is what a home inspection looks like. This is what you should look in your home. I give you all of that up front. And I make it pretty easy, whether you can look at it now or you could just say, okay, I'm going to go with it with you as I go through my transaction. It is $97. When I say it's well worth $97, then in my Facebook group, it's not just me saying it. In my Facebook group, in my reviews, everybody that has bought it has said it's been well worth it. So definitely get it. I just don't have the link for it right now because I'm not used to going live on Sundays. But the link is in all of my videos. And if you come back to this, I'll definitely link it in below. Okay. Let me, okay, Ashley East. This will be question number 1. I don't know. I know we can't predict the future, but do you have any insight on what the Fed may do in the fall market? Now, right now they're saying that they may cut interest rates 2 times. In 2024, that's the new projection, and it'll be like in the latter part of the year. So, but the interest rates, they're not going to be like, oh, they're going to cut them 1% or something. They're going to probably start slow, like 0.25%, 0.25%. So I don't think, one thing, the interest rates may be lower. I don't know if prices are going to be that much lower. So buy when you can afford to buy. Buy when you can afford to buy. Understand how refinancing works. So you're not just buying thinking you're going to refinance in 2-3 months. So just be aware of that. In the fall, because it's not as competitive, you may be able to get better pricing going into I say October through December. Less people list their house for sale. So if interest rates are lower and people are more desperate to get a buyer, then you may be able to get more of a discount, because during those holidays, I would say Halloween through New Year, if your house is still on the market, you're kind of desperate to sell. Otherwise, you just wait until January. But that would be my, interest rates may not be that much less in the fall, but the market is not as competitive as it is typically in the spring. So you may be able to get a lower rate and a discount on the property, perhaps. Okay. All right, question number 2. So maybe do some math. I see a lot of numbers. What determines the amount of closing costs? I had a lender who approved my loan for $215,000 for FHA, but I had to walk away because closing costs were $19,000. Does that seem high? That does seem high. Okay, so I have a lot of closing cost videos. You need to watch that. But $19,000 of 215, sorry, $19,000 divided by 215,000 is 8%. So typically closing costs around 3% or so, 3 to 4% maybe on the mortgage. What might have been happening is that he was charging you points to get your interest rate lower for a more affordable monthly payment, and thinking, okay, maybe you can get more of that $19,000 from the seller to contribute to those closing costs, where you would be able to have a lower monthly payment and also not have to put as much, as far as your closing costs. And I'm sure that what that $19,000 amount is, it probably also includes your down payment, I would think. I don't know. Hopefully, if it includes your down payment, it's not too crazy. I usually say about 7% you should save. So it's a little bit higher than that. So number 1, you need to watch my closing cost videos because it explains what all those costs and fees are. You should, number 2, always be getting 3 quotes so you can compare what everybody's charging you with those loan estimates. And, it's not too crazy if it includes your down payment as well at 3.5%. Yeah, but you have to look at it. It could be that there were some points in there in order for him to get your interest rate lower and your monthly payment lower. So you have to understand where that 19,000 was coming from before you say, "Oh, that seems high," right? Because if you said, "I don't want to," because a lot of times first-time home buyers will come to the lender and say, "I don't want to pay more than $2,000. I don't want to pay more than $15,000." And they're like, "Okay, we can make that happen. If you buy some points, you'll be able to get your mortgage payment down, that sort of thing." And then you don't understand what they're doing to get that payment that way. So 2 videos to watch. I'm giving you a couple of things. Sorry, my battery is about to go dead. Watch my closing cost videos. You'll be able to understand what all goes into closing costs. Ask this lender, the lender you walked away from, for a loan estimate so you can see all the fees he was talking about. And then watch my points videos, a points video. And that helps you explain where some of these extra costs may be coming from. I think those will all be helpful to you. And get my masterclass too, because that it'll just help you be knowledgeable. So you're not like, "Oh, what, $19,000, because it could just be that he did that to get your payment down with the assumption or with the hope that the seller would contribute a lot to that 19,000. All right, good question. And that was question number 2. All right. Let me see. All right, let's see. Gabrielle, this is question number 3. Gabrielle, thank you for joining me. We're at 2:32. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Por favor. All right, hi. For those of us who have to buy in this market, do you still think it is worth to pay high mortgages and wait to refi just to have the investment versus rent? No, I don't. I think if you're buying, and okay, let's deconstruct this whole question. It says, is it worth paying high mortgages? Okay, I think this is what the market rate is right now. High is relative, right? So it is high compared to 2 or 3 years ago, right? But I don't know if it's going to be high compared to 10 years from now. Okay, so it's all relative. So number 1 is your own personal affordability. Is it affordable for you? You need to make sure that if it's not affordable for you and you're going high just so you can buy something, no, we're not doing that, right? We're better off renting. I did a video about should you rent or buy. Watch that video. There's a calculator in there to see if it makes sense for you to buy. Let me give you an example. Your rent is $1,000. Your mortgage is going to be $2,000. That may not make sense, because that $1,000 can, go somewhere else or be invested, that sort of thing. It does not always make sense to buy. but long term, typically it does if you buy right. If you buy right, if you buy it in your budget, if you buy in a house that you're going to stay in, I would say 5 to 7 years minimum. If you were here with me earlier, there was a guy that said, oh, I'm only going to be in this job for 4 years. I may sell. I told him, don't buy, just rent. So it doesn't always make sense. And I'm not on the refi. People that are on the refi bandwagon just want your business. Oh, you can just refi, but they haven't explained to you how to refinance, what the requirements are to refinance. So watch that video. So videos you should watch next, Gabrielle, and this is for everybody. You should watch, can you afford a house? You should watch, what should your mortgage payment be? You should watch, when does it make sense to refinance? And you should buy, should you rent? You should watch, should you rent or should you buy? Because it's not always the case that it makes sense, right, to buy. And, you know, it's high compared to 2 to 3 years ago. Yes, mortgage rates are higher, but compared to 5 to 7 years from now, it might be lower. And you might be looking at, oh, I should have bought. You know, we don't know that, but we do know just from data over the years. Like when my grandmother bought her first house, the house was $30,000. And I'm like, Grandma, why don't you buy like 5 houses? Because that was expensive for them back then to spend $30,000 on a house. And so everything's relative. Real estate is one of the few investments that have a strong track record of more likely than not going up in value over time. So just be mindful of that, but don't buy just so you can get in a house and it's unaffordable or it's high where you're spending 50 to 60% of your take-home pay on your mortgage. That is not a good idea. All right. Good question, Gabrielle. That was question number 3. All right. Thank you, guys. All right. I'm not going to answer at a good time because I think I already did that. Somebody said my rent is over $2,000. I don't want to know what my mortgage is. That's why I'm never leaving. So even if I was ever to buy another house, which, you know, to live in, not to just invest, but to live in, I'm never selling this house that I have. And that's why, you know, the market is so tied up and there's not a lot of inventory because people like me are sitting on these houses we bought in, you know, I bought my house in 2016, interest rate is 3%. It doesn't make sense for me to sell right now. All right. Good question, Lachey, or good comment, Lachey. All right. So this is question number 4. Mandy, hello. I just went into contract. My lender continues to give me verbal estimates. Lender. I hate this. Okay. But nothing in writing. Okay. So once you get under contract, and Kevin backed me up on this. Once you get under contract, the seller by law has to give you a loan estimate within 3 days. I'm pretty sure. Okay. By law. You should not be just getting verbal information from your lender as far as a loan estimate at this time. And I wouldn't deal with any lender that's not willing to give you a loan worksheet or a preliminary estimate at time of pre-approval. I'm not dealing with lenders that can't take the time. I had a lady email me, and the lender, like they emailed her an estimate, and their reason was like just some, you know, numbers in an email, and said, oh, I don't want to spend too much time doing estimates if, you know, you're not under contract yet. Okay. We're not dealing with those lenders. Lenders are everywhere. You want to deal with a lender that has good customer service. With all this AI and all this stuff, it doesn't take them more than 5 minutes to give you a loan estimate after you've done a pre-approval. If they're not willing to give you a loan estimate or a worksheet or something in writing at time of pre-approval, don't use that lender. Do not use that lender. I'll say it again. Do not use that lender. They're not the lender for you. Okay. And it doesn't have to be an official loan estimate they give you after you're under contract. So it doesn't have to be official. It could be a loan worksheet. It could be a sample, but it's in writing, right? It's not something over the phone. But once you're under contract, I'm pretty sure by law, Kevin, I'm going to scroll down and see if Kevin's backing me up on this or not. All right. Yeah, Kevin, get it. Kevin, yes, they have to give you a loan estimate within 3 days. All right. So I'm not going to be able to find her question again. All right. Mandy, sorry about that. But let me say it again. If they're not willing to give you something in writing at pre-approval, don't use that lender. I have in my masterclass samples of a VA worksheet, a FHA worksheet, a conventional worksheet. All of those were given at time of pre-approval or shortly thereafter. It wasn't given after they were under contract. That lender is being lazy. Okay, so, but okay, let me say this. You're already under contract, so nicely ask. You are supposed to give me a loan estimate 3 days after we're under contract. I want it now. So ask that. And then talk to your agent and have your agent advocate for you. And this is where, and a lot of agents, your lender is your lender and I'm your agent. I help you find your house and the lender helps you finance your house and we stay separate. I've done 3-way calls, me, my client, and the lender, because at the first time home buyer, you don't know what to ask. You don't know that, oh, you're supposed to give me something in 3 days. So instead of me just putting you out there to the wolves, right? Not that all lenders are wolves, but let's do a 3-way. And then I'm gonna ask the questions because sometimes the lender can't disclose things to your agent without your permission. But let's do a 3-way call and make sure you get what you need. So agents, we gotta step up our game. Lenders, you need to step up your game. But if they're not willing to give you an estimate, just don't deal with them. That's my thing. All right, 2 more, you guys. 2 more. That was Mandy. All right, let me see. I said Mandy was number 4, right? So there's 1 more. Good question, everyone. All right. All right, this is my last one, I think, Brianna. All right, so please go ahead and buy my masterclass. I didn't have the link available, but again, if you're in my Facebook group, the link is everywhere. In all of my videos, I have a link to my masterclass, so please go ahead and get that. I'm going to be live next Thursday, but I'm talking to sellers and people that own property that are thinking about using their home equity. I'm going to make that live just about sellers and home equity. So if you know somebody that needs to join me then. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. So Brianna, is it a good idea to spend $4,000 to get credit utilization under 30% or get a personal loan with a smaller interest rate? Okay, so it depends, right? So what are you trying to do by getting your credit utilization? So if you get your credit, generally speaking, once you pay your credit utilization under 50%, your credit score is going to go up. Once you get it down under 30%, your credit score is going to go up. Once you get it under 10%, your credit score is going to go up. So if she does this, her credit score is going to go up. However, she's saying, or get a personal loan with a smaller interest rate. I just don't know what you're using the money for. So that's not the best question. Because a loan, once you take out new credit, your credit score may go down. What are you trying to use a loan for? I just don't know. So I'm going to hold judgment on your question because I really don't know. I'm going to take another question really quickly. All right, this will be my last question now. Jay, and I'm sorry, I just don't want to say something that doesn't make sense for you, Brianna. All right, hello. If I applied for a mortgage about a month ago, would it hurt my credit to apply with someone else? Probably. Okay, let me say that because you're outside of the window. Usually it's 30 days. You can apply with multiple lenders. I say keep it 14 days just in case there's any funny business going on. But there's a window in which you could apply to multiple mortgage lenders and it only impact your credit one time. It sounds like you're outside of that window. However, let me say this, it still is probably worth it. It's worth the credit hit if the interest rate or the fees are going to be lower, okay? I did the video. Kevin's been on here pretty much the whole hour. Kevin and I did a video in which I explained why it makes sense to get another credit pull if it's going to save you significantly. Because, credit, you keeping your credit score the same doesn't save you money necessarily because there's going to be a range. So say that you have a 680 credit score and this is going to bring you down to a 675 or something like that. The interest rate you're going to be offered from both sets of people is going to be the same. Okay. There are credit score ranges that, you get the same interest rate offered to you. So it's definitely worth it to get another credit pull, to get another estimate. Never just go with one person. Bad idea. But in that video that Kevin and I did, it was a live video. We did it last February of 2023 we did it, but it's still very relevant. And we answer all of these questions. And also, I have a client in my Facebook group. I have a video from one of my clients that did, I think, 6 credit approvals or pre-approvals. And he was like, the 4th one was the one I went with. So and he talks about, his impact to his credit, and it wasn't significant. He was already in the 700s, and that one was the best one. All right. So I hope this is helpful, everyone. Please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Y'all have a good rest of your Sunday.